the line of social dialogue. And the project started on February 2019, and it is going to end by the end of March. The partners involved are Federmeccanica and Adapt for Italy, Fundae for Spain, and CIS, the Chambers of Commerce for Slovenia. Then there are 3 organizations as associated partner, which are UMM for France, CIMED, and Industrial. For people that are listening and don't know what CIMED and might know what CIMED and Sectoral are, I'll say that CIMED is the European employer organization representing the interests of metal engineering and technology-based industry. And Industrial is the European organization of metal of trade unions in the metal sector. I see Evie Roelen that is joining us. Very good. And just a few words regarding the aim of this project. The aim was essentially the strengthening the role and the visibility of the metal sector social dialogue committee. For people that might know this, there is a social dialogue activity at European level, and there is a sectoral, so for the metal sector, social dialogue activity, particularly with the 2 committees. One regards education and training matters items, the other one competitiveness items. And with this project, we wanted to let people know about the activity of this social dialogue committee. We wanted to gather input from stakeholders in order to give back this input to the social dialogue parties, and with the aim to boost the social dialogue. That is very important, we think, moreover, in a crisis period, in this period that we are understanding better how important is the social dialogue, either at national and at European level. Just to introduce the panelists and the speakers of this webinar, I introduce Francesco Seghezzi, which is the president of ADAPT. ADAPT is a non-profit association with the aim of promoting, studying, and research in the labor law and industrial relations fields. Then there is Mrs. Delfino, which is the director of CIMED, the employer metal organization, just to simplify. And then we have Isabel Bartes, which is the Deputy General Secretary of Industrial, the European Med Trade Union. And last but not least, we have Roland, I hope to pronounce correctly the name, Hello, Ali. That is policy analyst at European Commission, DG Employment, and she is in charge of through many other things, of course, of following our project. And okay, as I was telling before, the speakers, our director Stefano Franchi hopefully will join us by the end of this meeting. He had an unpredictable problem. And I would give the floor to Francesco to start with the illustration of our final results of the project, which is the aim of today. Please,
thank
Francesco.
you, Sabrina. Thank you to everyone. The aim of my brief, short speech will be to say something about two products that we developed in the last part of this project that are a position paper and a set of guidelines. These are not very long documents because we wanted that the bigger number possible of people are going to read, to comment, to discuss them. So is something that is easy to, we think, we hope, easy to read. We try to go straight to the point in order not to say too many things and too broader things. Also because when we started this project, we didn't imagine all the pandemic situation. So we wanted to develop something that was very connected with like a big idea of innovation, digitalization, etc., but not initially connected to this huge phenomenon. So we also try to adapt the position paper and the guidelines to this situation. Was not super easy because the initially the position paper and the guidelines they have to be the result of several workshops that we had during the project. And so most of these workshops happened before all this situation. We only had one workshop, the Italian one, during this situation that was, of course, online. So our position paper and our guidelines, they focus mainly on 3 points. The first one is the work organization. The second one is skills, and the third one is social dialogue. But the main point that we want to underline is that each of these points doesn't work without the others. So it's a mix of these 3 points. It's like a triangle because you cannot do innovation, you can do a fair and competitive and a productive digital innovation and digital revolution inside the company, inside the work environment, without putting together all these points. Because if you have new technologies, and we start from the point that new technologies are coming. So we didn't discuss about that. We didn't discuss about how to finance new technology, how to incentive new technology, nothing about that. We started from the point that these are a reality in a lot of companies, and there are several policies. We also developed a policy review, a preliminary policy review, in which we show that there are in several countries, in most of the countries in Europe, economic and fiscal and financial programs in order to help companies in buying new technologies. So we started from this point. But if you have these technologies, you firstly need skills in order to use them, because without skills, technology is something that is blind, mute. It doesn't work. But you also, in order to use them, and especially in order to innovate the business problem, the process, you also need to put together a new work organization. That was, according to me, the main point that we wanted to focus, because in the last years we spoke a lot about skills, because I mean, at a certain point, when you have technologies, it's quite easy to understand that you need workers with technical and soft skills in order to use them, because it's not possible not to use them, without skills. But I think that the step that we still need to develop is the one about work organization, because if we think that is enough to have technologies and skills without changing the environment, without changing the way the people interact with machines and people interact with each other, I think that you will not have the flexibility needed in new markets, in which the consumers are more requesting to entering in the production, to have customized goods, customized products, etc. So you need a new work organization. And in order to put together work organization and skills, according to us, the best way, the best method is social dialogue at the border level and industrial relations at a company level. Without this situation of new technologies, from an opportunity, it becomes a threat. It is going to generate more conflict than in the past, because without an organizing of the turnover of skills, of the reskilling processes, etc., technologies seems only a risk for workers, and then a risk also for companies, because they don't want to introduce more conflict introducing new technologies. So this is, if I have to summarize very briefly, the main concept underpinning the especially the position paper is this. And also the guidelines are divided in these 3 points. Especially the first one is the longer, is the one about work organization, in which we say that we have, especially after the pandemic, we discover during the pandemic that deconstructing the space and time characteristic of the industrial work, especially in white collar, of course, was easier than we thought, because in several companies we had like experimental programs of remote working for the next 2, 3, 4 years for 20-30% of population. And we discovered that with the pandemic, in 2-3 days, we put at home, working at home, a huge share of workers. The challenge today is to organize these space and time changes that cannot be only a consequence of a pandemic emergency. We discovered that it's possible. We discovered that technology can allow us in order to do this. But now we have to develop a method of discussion and of organization that make these changes sustainable for companies and for workers. Think about, for example, the so-called right to disconnect. That is a point that we have to develop. In my opinion, especially by the point of view of industrial relations, because all the sectors and all the factories to have different logic based on their processes. So there is not a general right to disconnect, but it has to be developed in specific situation. And we also discover that industrial relation and work organization are related more than we thought with health and safety, especially in this period. And health and safety are something that is not based only inside the walls of the company, because now we are working at home. So the idea of organize health and safety is to try to organize it in a broader way, not stopped by the boundaries, the traditional boundaries that we had in the past. We also have to innovate the way we think the relationship between man and machine, because we have to think in a work organization perspective about technology, not as a destiny, I may say, but as a tool. So we can organize the relationship between man and machine in order that the level of substitution is the lower and the level of complementarity is the higher. So the opportunity for workers to lose workload, for example, and became more intellectual, more creative, more like smarter, if I might say. And this is an opportunity. We can use technology in a way only in order to substitute workers. We can use the technology in order to give them more opportunities with positive consequences in terms of productivity of the worker itself, so of the company. Um, we know that in this moment work organization could mean also, especially in the phase of the recovery after the pandemic, a potential reduction of employment stocks after restructuring processes, etc. Regarding this, we underline that we have to find ways in order to favoring like accompaniment towards retirement schemes, so if it's possible, but especially to work on professional retraining, because the main urgency today is to reduce the risk of long-term employment that sometimes in unexpected crisis is one of the main consequences, because people lose their jobs after maybe 20, 25 years of the same job with the same skills, because they thought that it was impossible to lose their job, but there is a crisis that is completely unexpected. So the point of retraining is very important. That gives me the opportunity to go to the second point, that is the one about skills, in which we underline that there is no true technological innovation without innovation in human capital. This is the main risk today, is the dispersion of skills and the threat of the so-called, from Keynes, technological unemployment. Today, we have to organize work, we have to retrain workers in order not to generate this kind of consequence of the negative externality, because if the idea of if they spread like a connection between technology and unemployment, I think it will be a social problem also for doing innovation too. I think it's going to stop an innovation process if we do not project it with the main goal of saving occupation and through an increasing of the level of skills of workers, so they can be able to use this new technology and not lose their job because of these new technologies. In order to do this, the the continuous learning is one of the main points, and we think that we need, if learning is a continuum process, we need a greater integration between school and companies from the beginning to all the career of the worker. We focus often on the dual system and how to connect schools and workers, especially before the beginning of work or in the first time. But I think that we have to develop positive connection during along all the career of the workers, because this possibility of obsolescence of skills is in all the career today. We need to put together periodical assessment of skills with a connection to the actors that can help in fixing this gap that we discover sometimes during our career as workers. Um, Also because we think that training today is one of the main protection on labor market, because we know that labor market is unstable. Pandemic emergency, I think, shows it in the hugest way that we could imagine. Also, companies that we thought they were very solid, etc., they are going to sometimes they are going to close because of that situation that is not generated by a market failure, but is another kind of problem. So with updated skills, we think that we have the opportunity to let me say, well, survive better on to surf the waves of a very complex labor market today. Is not the only solution. We need protection. We need income protection. We have to think a lot. We think a lot of things, but it's not a problem of our project today. But by the point of view of skills, I think that retraining and the access to training is one of the main protection that we can give to workers today. And also company has to think this, because giving skills to their workers sometimes for them is a risk, because workers maybe they can go to another company later. But I think that if all the companies they think about the importance of training, they are going to generate a better quality labor market. So all the labor market, and so all the companies, they will have benefits in this in a long time. The last point about this is that I think we have to think the role of these new remote training methods that have been at the heart of the pandemic, and think how to use them also in a normal situation, because they can be useful. They can also be not useful, but it depends how they are used, how they are projects. So we have to think about at that. This is a point that we added during the pandemic. And the last point is more focus on the role of social dialogue and social dialogue committee. There are some points, and maybe you can read in the guidelines, but we focus on the importance of participation of the largest number of countries and partners, in order to have the opportunity to share information, to share best practice, and without this mass, it's difficult to develop ideas and to solve problems and to discuss common problems in all the different shapes that they have in different countries. At the same time, we think that it's important to continuous and timely sharing, maybe also with social media. We should think about that, of the documents that can help in knowing what the committee does and what can do for the sector and for the national actor of social dialogue, etc. Also to develop a concrete approach in sharing, especially bad practice, in order not only to discuss the big problems that are very important, especially today, but also to find ways to have a concrete solution that workers and companies can adapt in their concrete situation. So these are the main points of the position paper, especially of the guidelines. As I said before, these are short documents, so you can read it, and I hope you can find them interesting, and if you want, you can contact Adapt, Federmeccanica, etc., in order to discuss their contents. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. Very important point you spoke about, and I didn't say at the beginning if there are questions or comments. You can raise your hand through the platform, and you will be habilitated to speak, or you can write your question in the chat, and we can read and do the question to the speakers. Now the program of the webinar. In the program, there is a panel discussion in which are involved Delphine Rudelli and Isabel Bertes. I'll do some questions to stimulate the debate. It's the same question for both, so we can do either once starts Delphine and once starts Isabel, if you wish so, and they are of course related to what we have listened and what the results of the document of the project are. So our first question, what is, in your opinion, the added value of the European social dialogue, even especially during unexpected event or challenge as the one we are living today? I leave you the choice. Who want to start? Isabel, Delphine? Okay, Delphine, I can ask you to start.
Isabel, I can start, and then you, okay. Yeah. You might receive quite some similar answers, at least I hope, because otherwise it would mean that we don't have the same understanding of what European social dialogue is. So we might have some diverging views on one or the other point, but normally I think we should have some common answers, or at least some commonalities. I think when we created our Sectoral Social Dialogue Committees, that was in 2010, Isabel and I were already there, hanging around. I think we had a common understanding that it was good that CIMET and Industrial, EMF at that time, could regularly discuss and exchange about what was at stake for our two organizations. I think 10 years ago, we had an interest in sharing, I think, our views on a number of important topics for our sector, even though industrial covers a bit of a wider sector than CIMET does, but at least for the metal industry. And years after years, I think that the way we have conceived our social dialogue is, I think, as it was stressed by you and Francesco before, of course, the exchange of best practice and good example of what's happening at national level, because I think that the European social dialogue is based on what's happening at national level. So this is a very important added value of our European social dialogue, and also to identify some topics and issues that are relevant for us at EU level, based on what's happening in the EU bubble, as we call it, and where we see that there could be an interest in exchanging and possibly having positions in common or conclusions or actions. There have been a number of topics on which we have been working all along the years, and it's true that I think we've been quite successful in passing on some messages together, and I think this is one of the added value of this European social dialogue, at least in our sector. Try to be constructive on the topics that are very important for us. If I take, for example, one of the latest, and I don't want to go into the second question too much, because of course that's one of the things that we will address under question number 2. But If you take, for example, one of the a position that we've adopted just before Christmas, we've discussed together, CMED and Industrial, on the need to have a strong involvement of the social partners in the national resilience and recovery plans. And I think that was, for us, a way to call for our members to be involved together or even separately. It did not really matter, but we wanted to have a strong involvement of the social partners at the national level in the RRF, because we thought it was an important tool. It is still an important tool to build the recovery at national level. So I think here there was a willingness for both organizations to bring Europe closer to the national level. And to raise awareness to our members on an important topic where there could be added value for them in the months to come to try to help them face the crisis. So I think one of the main things that I would see, at least for CMES, is really to work together with Industrial on the topics that are important for our industry. There are many, we can discuss a little bit after in the discussion. To work together, see if there are messages that we can put to the European institution together. And on the other side, also, what are the topics that we can bring to our members, where raise awareness vis-à-vis our members on European topics that are interesting for them at national level.
Thank you, Delphine. And Isabel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sabrina, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me congratulate Francesco for his report. I thought it was extremely interesting and I would say very well focused on the specificity of our sectors, because when you talk about digitization, you often talk about many issues that are not always specifically related to industry. And there you have well identified this, these three dimensions, as you mentioned: technology, skills, and work organization, and then the key role that a social dialogue plays in this. And this is not new, actually, and in a way, this is why we're here together, actually, and we decided to establish this social dialogue, because when you talk to our members about introduction of new technologies, well, it's actually has been their day-to-day business, for decades, actually. How you introduce new technologies, how you make sure that it is well received, well accepted, and also you prepare, the workforce, at least for our side, the workforce for the introduction of these new technologies, because on the one hand, yes, there is some fear about the implication for jobs, but also an understanding that without investing into new technologies, then you also might you lose your job at the end. So, and this is very much, I would say, part of the reason why we have had this social dialogue. It's also very clear that what we've seen now since the pandemic broke out is that social dialogue was able to deliver on tackling the crisis, supporting workers' health, at the same time making sure that company could stay open, coming up with specific arrangement to support income, also calling for short-time work measures, but also getting involved directly, because in many of our countries, social partners were directly at the front line, actually supporting companies to have access to short-time work, and also to and also for workers. And all this information was brought up at European level also, and we were able to lobby the European level also for continuation of support measures, highlighting the flaws, but also the positive aspects. So this has been a positive experience for social dialogue, and without actually anticipating of what will be our next question, actually, we think that we should learn the lesson, because this has shown that social partners, where you have had a mature social dialogue, and this is, if you look at the European level, this hasn't been the case everywhere. And I think both companies in some countries and workers actually have paid the price in some cases of the lack of the absence of a social dialogue.
Thank you very much, Isabel. I also forgot to say that the guidelines and the position paper are in our website. Under which is federmeccanica.it, and you go under Europe and find SoDiMa project and the document related. Both Delphine and Isabel mentioned topics that social dialogue has to face. And so my next question is about the priority topics and policies that the committee will have to address in the following months. When I say the committee, I mean, of course, the Social Dialogue Committee. Isabel, it's your turn now.
Thank you. Well, as you know, we have had some topics already identified, because we have a 2-year work program. So from the Competitiveness and Employment Work Group, digitization is one of our priority, and for training, lifelong learning is also one of the current priority. But of course, we have to take stock of what is now happening. And as Delphine pointed out, the recovery plan and the way the recovery plan are implemented at national level are, of course, very important for us. And as you know, also in the priority of the National Recovery Plan, training, digitization, the greening of the economies are also key. And I was talking about how social dialogue has proven its efficiency in managing the crisis. Unfortunately, we have to say that government did not really learn the lesson, in the sense that when it was about to talk about the recovery plan and how the money could be spent, they did not involve the social partners as we would have liked, actually. So it's one of the big a big concern for us, but nonetheless, we will continue making the case for being involved now in the implementation, because we still believe that we are best placed to know where the investment have to be made in order for this recovery to support the restart, for this plan to support the recovery of the economy. The other 2 priorities, and I'm getting a bit broader here, but I mean, this is very much also in the remit of our committees, is the fact that we have to deal with the twin transitions, which now have been amplified by the COVID. One is digitization, as already mentioned by Francesco in his presentation, but also the greening of the economy. I mean, we see actually how we are faced with a technological leapfrog, actually. I mean, some technologies will be probably phased out quicker than we think, actually. And there, of course, we have to play a role, because at the end of the day, we will be dealing with the consequences of these technological evolution. And also we have to make the skills available, because it's not enough to say, as Francesco said, it's not enough to say, well, we have the technology. You also need the skills that make it available to work with these technologies. So, I mean, these are not new topic for us, but probably the challenges will be amplified because these transformation will go faster. And the last point also for us is strengthening collective bargaining. As I said before, we've seen that in some countries, social dialogue, collective bargaining needs to be rebuilt and strengthened.
Thank you, Isabel. It's interesting to see that also at national level, at least for Italy, digitalization training and green competencies are also a priority in this period. Delphine.
Well, there's not much I can add, because obviously all the topics that Isabel has mentioned, this is the list, this is our shopping list, if I may say. I mean, this is the work program that we've adopted. There are a few others, because we also try to follow a little bit what the European Commission is proposing. So we have identified also that we might need to have a discussion on platform work, because obviously we want to make sure that we don't miss this conversation with the European Commission. So we will try to identify how this is impacting our sector. But just to say that we have our own agenda, but we also need to make sure that all the discussions that are proposed by the European Commission, we follow them whenever we think that they are potentially impacting specifically the metal industry. So this is the way we conceive the topics that we are looking at in the Social Dialogue Committee, either because we think it's important for us from the start and that's our own items, or because they come from the European agenda directly, and we think that there is an interest for us at least to have a discussion between ourselves to see if potentially we are interesting in discussing them further. So that's the case, for example, for platform work, which will also be on our agenda for the coming months.
Thank you very much, Delphine. And I have one more question for both of us, and it is about the initiatives that can be taken to increase the visibility of the Social Dialogue Committee among entrepreneurs and workers at the national level, because this is at the end of the day also an item we have to deal with, to make understandable and known what at the European level is done within the social dialogue. So Delphine, may I ask you to...
Sure, yeah. Well, I think there would be, for me, there would be two levels of answers for this question. Isabel has already touched upon the fact that the level of social dialogue and the strength of the social partners in the countries vary very much, as we've seen during the crisis. I mean, the answer that was given by the social partners in our sectors has varied very much from one country to another. Not everyone was served in the same way. Which I think is one of the first issues we have to tackle, because of course, to have a strong European social dialogue, you need strong social partners at national level in our sector. And we know that, of course, we are very strong members, industrial and CMET, I mean, in some countries, but there are also countries where social partnership is lacking behind for a number of reasons that will be too long to enter into a discussion at this stage. But this is something that we definitely need to work on. And I think that when Isabel was mentioning, strengthening collective bargaining and social dialogue, this is an aspect. And definitely, if we want the outcome of the European social dialogue to be well known and disseminated, this is the first thing. We need to make sure that there are existing social partners at the national level. On a more pragmatic and day-to-day things that we could do, I think there is an important role, probably, maybe if we want to share the responsibility, to be fair, maybe we need to communicate more at CMET and industrial level, but also I think CMET and industrial members at national level need also to take their responsibility, because you also are the vectors for disseminating what we do at EU level. This being said, I mean, we know we have one main problem, and I'm French, so I know this problem very well, which is the problem of language. You need to translate probably what is done at EU level into a language which is spoken in the countries, because this is probably the only way that a position, a declaration, a joint statement, or whatever we do at EU level can be understood at the national level. So there is probably this issue of translation of documents. Then there is also this issue of explaining what we do. So it means that CMET and industrial members need also to take, digest, and explain to their members at national level what is done in the EU social dialogue committees, working groups, in terms of activities, why we take one subject and not the others, and how we evolved in the social dialogue. Of course, it takes time. It is, an effort to make, but I think it goes via the national members, publishing on the website, explaining in your general assemblies or whatever. I mean, it does take time, but I think there is a responsibility. I put it into brackets, into comment. I mean, of course, because I think it's a shared responsibility, but of communicating how the EU and the national level articulates it. And I think that if the national members of CMET and industrial don't play that role, the EU level will never be able to deliver as much as we would like to. Of course, maybe we can do better in terms of communication. This is something that maybe we could discuss, but I think the national level has a very important role to play in the dissemination of what is done in Brussels.
Well, I could not really agree more, actually. I mean, it's clearly a two-way street, actually. I mean, you have to, engage in the social dialogue at European level with also your own priority, so that it also strengthen your position at national level. And it's the same for us, actually. I mean, we can only be strong at European level if we know that the position we are pushing are in line with our affiliates. I mean, and then I would say communication in that case almost becomes natural, actually, because I mean we can reinforce each other, actually, and I would say, I mean, this is very much what has been done lately, because we see how that the challenges are so common. I mean, and what we hear from the European level about the transformation, of course, about the crisis, it's very much also what is coming back from the national level. I mean, then the question is also, as Delphine said, the languages and also our capacity, because I mean, ideally, we could do much more, actually, but we are also limited by our own resources, and we know that you're also limited. So it's also a matter of defining the right priorities and making sure that we are all moving in the same direction.
Thank you very much also, Isabel. I would ask who is listening if there are questions or comments. Curiosity. Okay, I can understand also that maybe make questions in English. It's as we were saying, language is not a small problem sometimes. Okay. Okay. At this point, I would thank Francesco, Delphine, and Isabel, and I would ask Evie Roland give the floor to Heavy for the conclusion of the webinar. Thank you, Evie.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? Okay, that's already a good starting point. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the interesting presentation and also the debate. Of course, as the Commission representative, it's always very interesting to hear social partners talk also in this, I would say, yeah, nice, maybe a bit more informal setting than we sometimes see each other in the formal sectoral social dialogue committee meetings. And I'm very happy that I could join this debate today in the context of the project funded by the Commission, so the SoDiMa project. Let me, in my conclusion, focus on I would say on one of the areas in which the project makes recommendations, and that's of course on the social dialogue at the European level. And I believe that that was also the main topic of today's discussion. And let me look at it from the perspective of what the European Commission is doing now and plans to do for the future as well. Let me start with the funding for social dialogue. As you know, and this project is of course a product of that. We have 3 calls for proposals that aim at promoting European social dialogue. It's at cross-industry level, but also at sectoral level, and as well at company level even. While fully respecting the autonomy of social partners. So we have a call for workers' organizations, a joint call for social dialogue, and then we have also thirdly a call for the company level. And I was also informed by my colleagues that with respect to the 2 first calls, so the workers' call and the social dialogue call, that these calls for the year 2021 should be launched relatively soon. Then there is also a new call on strengthening the role of social partners in mitigating the economic and social impact of the crisis. And this is a call where the deadline for submitting proposals is on the 26th of April. However, here, and this is a little, as we say in French, bémol maybe for sectoral social partners, the lead applicant need to be a cross-industry social partner. But of course, you can then join this cross-industry social partner in a project. Secondly, what we are doing at the European level, of course, is organize the meetings, the committee meetings, where most of you, I think, I mean, at least Delphine and Isabel participate. And of course, this is what we currently have to do in this remote setting. I hope that the pandemic will soon be over and that we will have again the physical meetings. But here we provide the translation. So this is indeed an important way to facilitate social dialogue at European level by having our translators there in the meetings. And let me also briefly look at the future of what we will do in the Commission. And as you know, in February, Mrs. Andrea Nales presented a report on strengthening the European social dialogue. And you were basically, I think, the only sectoral social partners that managed to have Andrea Nahles in the committee meetings. So you got a very good presentation, I think, of Andrea Nahles in the committee meeting. And based on that report, there was in March the action plan presented by the Commission on the implementation of the pillar of social rights. And I want to point out that the action plan announces announces an initiative to support social dialogue at the EU level and at the national level. And this will be further presented next year. Of course, we already know what is in the plan. And this links also to this awareness raising that I heard in the debate. So it could be an important vehicles for the awareness raising of European sectoral social dialogue. So first of all, there will be a launch of a new award on for social dialogue practices. And this award should be in different categories. So you would have one on, on the cross industry, then on the sectoral social dialogue. But of course, this is all we are just at the start of this process and of thinking of it, basically, of how to implement this. Another important, I would say, initiative also in the area of awareness raising is this information and visiting program for young social partners. And I think this is also a very important, this will also become an important tool, because this would then include, let's say, a visit at European institutions, also exchanges between European social partners and with the Commission and so on. So I think there is a lot of potential as well in the area of raising awareness. And then, of course, there was announced at a liaison forum earlier this month the review of the sectoral social dialogue, and there will also be a new supporting frame for social partner agreements. Now, having said all this, this is a lot, of course, and we will at the Commission level really aim for joint processes. This is not something that the Commission will do alone. We will fully involve you as sectoral social partners. And more globally, the involvement of social partners remains a key priority for the Commission. So also in all initiatives, not only at the EU level, but also at the national level. And I believe that this was also a subject of the debate earlier today. This is something that we always highlight in our reports on the European semester, for example, that social partners need to be involved in reforms, for example, at the national level. So I have come to the end of my intervention now, and I really would like to thank you all again for the useful exchanges, and I look very much forward to continue working with you in the future.
Okay, thank you, Abby, and thank you also from my side. I'm happy that this was an opportunity, the project was an opportunity to talk about social dialogue and to listen stakeholders in the country that were partner of the project, and also in the meeting today. We also had the opportunity to interview many stakeholders in the different countries and to listen their point of view. They were entrepreneurs, professors, trade unionists, and so all the partners involved. And okay, I see the chat. Okay, there is a Sofia Gutierrez, which is a colleague Fundai, the partner from Spain that says hello and congratulations for the project and the conference. Thank you, Sophia. And I just were reading from the chat. If there are any questions or comments, we are ready to give back answers. Otherwise, we.
I have a question, actually, Sabrina. A question to Evie. I think I misunderstood what you said about what the Commission will announce next year. Did you talk about the one of Mrs. Nall's recommendation about the idea to have social dialogue representative in the different DGs? Do we know that whether this will materialize? Because I mean, this is one of the, we supported all the proposal, but we thought that it was a very interesting one to actually make the different DGs more aware of what the social partners do.
Yes, thank you for your question. I mean, I didn't elaborate on it, but it's still on our agenda, yes. So we are looking into that as well. This is one of the proposals that is very interesting of the Nall's report. So, and that is not in the action plan, but that is still on the table. Yeah. I hope I have answered your question.
Okay. Any other question? No, if not, if this is not the case, I thank you everyone, the participants and the speakers, and okay, I wish you a nice week, stay safe, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for organizing.
Thank you, Sarina.
And for
Thank you.
carrying out the project. Very interesting
Isabel.
outcomes.
Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks a lot for
very
everything.
much.
See you soon in real.
Bye-bye.
We hope.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.